I call to order the meeting of the Verona Plan Commission for Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. We'll begin with the roll.
Commissioner Harrison,
Here.
Commissioner Wood, and Commissioner Powers are both absent. Mayor Diaz.
Here.
Alder Posey,
Here.
Commissioner Lytle,
Here.
and Commissioner Hankard.
Here.
All right, that's 5 of 7. That's enough for a quorum. We'll move on to item 3, which is public comment. If any members of the public wish to comment, now would be the time to do so. Seeing no one approaching the microphone, we'll move on to item 4, which is approve the minutes from the December 4th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Questions, comments, or motions to approve? Alder Posey.
Move approval.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Harrison. Last chance for corrections. Seeing no hands, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the December 4th, 2023 Plan Commission meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the minutes are approved. Next, we'll move on to item 5, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the initial review for 32 to 40 unit luxury motorsports storage condos located on Lot 5 in Liberty Business Park.
Thank you. As the mayor said, this is an initial review of a request at Lot 5 of Liberty Business Park to construct between 32 and 40 personal storage units with a clubhouse. The applicant has characterized the concept as a premier motorsports condo facility. And as it relates to the zoning ordinance, staff has categorized the use as a personal storage facility and event center, both uses which are considered conditional by the zoning ordinance. The applicant has expressed their opinion that this is a new category, which it sort of is. However, uses not described in the current zoning ordinance are just not permitted. So the only way for the applicants to, for the request to be considered would be to, for it to be characterized as a personal storage facility and event center. Excuse me. The property is in the suburban industrial zoning district. It is currently vacant property, surrounded by other properties in the suburban industrial district. ACS, which was recently constructed, is located to the east across, across Liberty Drive. So the applicant has prepared three concepts. Option 1 is their preferred concept. That was what they initially came in with. And that has 32 units in 2 buildings. However, this is considered non-conforming due to the use standard for personal storage facilities, which states a personal storage facility shall consist of a single building, whereas this design has it split up in 2 separate buildings with roughly 16 units in each building. So this proposal would be considered non-conforming. We encourage the applicant to consider alternative proposals due to the underlying zoning and the use standard. In this concept, you can see there's a gate. You might not be able to see it in your version, but there's a gate running approximately from each end of the building across the entrance. This plan was not dimensioned. It's sort of just a concept plan. So the amount of pavement was not clear, but the intent is to meet the lot coverage requirements. This plan also has a clubhouse, which is located near Liberty Drive, sort of if you look at the site plan, sort of on the outside of the gate. It's a little more apparent in one of the other the 3D rendering. They show some outdoor tables in that area. The other option, option 2, shows a more conforming proposal with all the units located in one building. However, this does include, while the plan isn't to scale and it's not dimensioned, it looks to be potentially more pavement area, because you've got, instead of just one main drive aisle, you've got a drive aisle to the north and a drive aisle to the south. And this is, but it is conforming. The third option has 32 units, including the clubhouse, again, located near Liberty Drive. This is one building, so this is conforming to that use standard that we discussed earlier. They were able to make this conforming by attaching the two buildings into one by making sort of a U shape, the western end of the property. Setbacks, bulk, and parking requirements are all assumed to be met and will be verified upon a complete submittal with the dimension site plan. Also, landscaping has not been submitted as part of the concept plan. It wouldn't typically be a requirement, but just something for the applicant to know, and also for the Plan Commission to know that this will be presented at a later date. Parking lot perimeter for this particular property, its location, we would expect perimeter landscaping to be included, as well as interior parking lot landscaping. And that basically sums up the proposal. If the Plan Commission has any questions they'd like to ask, the applicants are in the audience.
Thank you for that explanation. So in regards to options 1, 2, and 3, are you or the applicant looking for feedback, like, should we say a preference, or?
Well, I guess the main thing to keep in mind is that their preferred option is not conforming, and it's not really something you can ask for a variance for. It just wouldn't be permitted, so really they're looking at options 2 or 3.
Okay.
I think from a staff's point of view, option 3 provides sort of a maximum use of the property while limiting the paved areas. One of the things to keep in mind, there is a setback requirement because this is adjacent to 81-151 or Highway 81-151, and so that's a 42-foot setback. So they'll need to set back the property, and they also need to provide stormwater detention and probably some additional areas to allow the water to sort of percolate into the ground. So something else that's needed to be accommodated on the site. That's something that our engineers at AECom will take a look at, along with the design professionals as part of the development team. But I think the preferred concept of 3 is probably going to be option 3 because it is the most conforming at this point. One of the things that's also going to be difficult for this particular proposal, notwithstanding the use, is how to provide interior parking lot landscaping. So that's something that hasn't been discussed yet, but as their design progresses, that'll be something to keep in mind.
Okay, and I guess I have a follow-up, not to put you on the spot here, but in regard to option 1 not being conforming to zoning, is that an oversight in our zoning ordinances that we don't allow for it, or is this kind of like a unique one of that we wouldn't be expected to cover this?
Yeah, I mean, I get the understanding when the ordinance was rewritten a couple of years ago. The idea is to have storage facilities all in one building, so you don't have kind of a sea of storage units, and also so you're doing more vertical construction rather than horizontal construction. So I understand the thought process and why the ordinance was created that way, but this is somewhat of a unique concept. I mean, I'm familiar with this type of use, not of this scale. Usually, someone might take a existing building and rehab it into something where they've got interior storage for cars and vehicles and motorcycles, but that's more of like a reuse of an existing sort of industrial building. I haven't seen it where they've sort of built it ground up. There's also locations where they've got, this is more for boats. I know on the lake, here locally. They've got storage facilities that are probably three stories where they store boats on the inside, and they use lifts to kind of take those in and out of that storage facility. But this particular use and concept is somewhat new, at least to me.
Excellent, thank you. Other feedback from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Lytle, then Alder Posey.
Thank you. I just familiar with the auto handler facility over in Fitchburg, and I think it's great that you guys are coming in with a concept closer to Verona. It almost seems like we should consider additional zoning or use options for something like this. I saw the note from the fire department about prohibiting auto body repair. My guess is that someone who rents one of these units thinks of it basically as an extension of their personal garage at their house. And so whether they have someone that would come in and do PDR at their house or, do, detailing of their vehicles and that kind of thing. So I'd be concerned. I'm sure you guys looked at this much more, but, if you tell tenants that they're the only ones who can do anything with their cars, if you have a mobile business coming in to replace a windshield, is that auto body repair? And, I think it would be unfortunate if we, you were in a position or we were in a position to force you to not let tenants do that. And so extending the whole, I would do this in my own garage and I need to call somebody to replace my windshield and he'll do it in my driveway. Why can't I do it at my rental unit? So, again, whether thinking of this more as conforming to some kind of auto repair conditional use scenario that also happens to have multiple units that are rented out might be something worth considering. As long as no one else objects, I guess I'd like to ask the applicants what, you would think the tenants would want in terms of things that they should and shouldn't be able to do within the facility.
Yeah, if you could introduce yourself.
I'm Keith Schultz, live in town here, have for 13 years now or so, but yeah, I would assume I'm a classic car collector myself. I like to tinker. I would assume most owners are going to want to be able to at least change their oil, do minor maintenance of their vehicles in the units. We would love to be able to allow someone like a detailer to come in and use one of the spaces. Totally understand not allowing a full-fledged auto body shop because that is more of an extreme use and that's not our intent whatsoever. But yeah, a detailer or windshield replacement or minor maintenance sort of things, or even the guy who's wants to restore the car or something like that. A lot of them will take the body off the frame, ship it out to an auto body shop to do the work while they're doing engine repairs or suspension repairs or things like that in their own garage. So something like that is what I would think most owners would want the use for. Some of it might be just the person with several collectible vehicles or the Ferrari owner or something like that doesn't want their kids dinging it in their garage, But yeah, you mentioned the auto handler one in Fitchburg, Oregon area. There's also one in Middleton, which is called Auto Vault. And both of those have been real successful. I haven't heard of any problems or issues. And I don't know, I think there's a real need for it, especially with all the neighborhoods being developed recently, not allowing sheds or detached buildings. So, any other questions while I'm up here?
Thank you. No, we need to follow the zoning requirements, but I also don't want you guys to be limiting and be limited in terms of how you can attract clients and tenants, so, thanks.
Thank you. We got Alder Posey and then Commissioner Harrison.
You can probably stay, because I have a couple. I'll start with my questions for you, then my other stuff. So would these units be plumbed for additional restrooms to be in the unit? Would they have that option?
Yes, our intent was to at least rough in for a bathroom, but not complete a bathroom in each unit.
Okay. So my question is, because little birdies kind of find their way with rumors of things like people moving into these
Yep.
kind of places and ending up using it as a residence and not just a storage facility. So is there a way to prevent that? Is that something that you guys would be doing?
Yeah, obviously, in any condo documents, we would strictly prohibit that. Might be a little hard to catch someone initially, but we'll have security cameras and a scan card to enter the gate and all that sort of thing, so.
So you'd be
I
able,
think we
somebody
able
would
to
be
tell
watching that?
pretty quickly if someone's in and out on a living sort of basis rather than just storage or shop sort of basis.
Yeah, because I definitely, if people are working on their cars and everything, and this is sort of extended family and everything else, like, I get this. So I think having a shower, having that private bathroom facility, I totally get it, but that was my number one thought when this popped up. My other thought, and this is more, if you have a comment on it, is I have a concern about location just because it is so close to a nice, long, straight road. And these are some really nice cars that people like to drive fast. And,
Are you talking the highway or?
oh, no.
Wayland Road?
Wayland.
Okay.
Because it's 2 lanes, it's straight, it's long, and there are, people who live along there, there's a lot of traffic coming along there, and I think that that would be a concern. Obviously, there's a highway, but that's the highway. And obviously, the folks from here are going to be accessing it, and it's a great location for that. It's a great location even for noise, if people have loud cars and to get their engines and whatever else they're going to be doing. I think it's a good spot overall, but that is my one concern, is Wayland Road, and potentially having some of your folks having to be bugged quite a bit if we start having to do additional patrolling, or the sheriffs are additional patrolling out there because of speed and noise and everything else. So that should just be something that you guys are being aware of and taking into consideration as this is, because I don't know about everybody else, but I'm constantly hearing about people running stop signs, going too fast on local roads, and then putting this right there on a local 2-lane road, even that's leading into town. It could just end up being something that bugs all of your tenants. So.
Totally understand the concern. I do think with the lowered 25-mile-an-hour speed limit there on Wayland and the new 4-way stop, I think it would be pretty hard for someone to be real crazy in that area, but yeah, there's
I would hope that-
disrespectful people out there everywhere, yes.
And it's more and more right now, and that's just of concern with this. But overall, I mean, like I said, I think the location for something like this is good. I'm okay looking even into other options, especially for drainage and everything else, to see ordinance adjustments and whatever we can look at for that. Because I think adding, rather than having green space at the end, adding more building when it's not needed. So looking into that as well, I'd be open to that too. So,
Yeah,
Is that-
can I comment on those concepts and that drainage thought?
Not unless.
not unless I ask you a question.
Would you like to ask a
Do
question?
do you have some concepts how you could provide more green space and trees and that part of breaking up the asphalt and, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason we prefer the 2-building option is, one, it does add more green space towards the west end. There's about 80 feet at the west that we don't intend to build on because it slopes off pretty drastically. And that runs directly to the stormwater drainage area. So when I talked to Catherine initially, she said we would probably have to put some filtration in that area as the water runs off the site, which was primarily why we liked that two-building concept better, and the ease of snow plowing and drainage of the snow and all that. So one other thought we had was initially 4 buildings to have a little bit of green space in between the 4 separate buildings, but I guess when we caught wind of storage facilities only allowing 1 building, we reduced it to the 2 buildings and the 1 building concepts to try to minimize the impact of varying from code, but we really think that 2-building option allows more green space and better drainage and better snow plowing.
It's a very unique thing we're facing, so I think I'm open to some flexibility in figuring out what we're allowed to do and shift to allow, I think green space would be better than less, and seeing what we can figure out. But again, my biggest concerns is with people potentially trying to eke out a little overnight time and extra overnight time, and, you know, if they've got RVs parked in there and they've got their bathroom in there, it's just real easy, especially with cost of living plus this.
Yeah, we would do everything in our power to prevent that, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Harrison.
So I also have a question for you. So with parking, are you expecting to have parking stalls in front of each unit or as like a central parking lot, especially in the option 3?
So, yeah, and I was just looking to see which one option 3 was. The intent would be the parking stalls would be in front of the units, though.
Okay.
We don't intend to have a whole lot of guest activity there. It should mostly be unit owners. So there's plenty of room for 2 parking spots in front of each individual unit.
Okay. And yeah, I find this to be really interesting. I agree, green space would be really nice, and it's not something it's not something I've seen such a big building for. Again, I've seen like repurposed buildings do this, but it's really interesting to see like a 32 unit one. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes forward. Because I think it's a really cool concept, especially being so close to the neighborhoods that don't allow extra storage as part of the HOAs. So, yeah, I think that was my concern that hasn't already been addressed by my other commission people. So, yeah. Thank you.
Other feedback? Commissioner Hankard.
My turn. Yeah, this seems, I don't have any questions for you, thank you. It seems like more of a classification issue than it does a use issue. Like this is actually not a bad place for this. This is an interesting and needed, I guess, service of the community. I get what he's saying about option 1 being perhaps better for many reasons, and the only reason they can't do it is because we're classifying this as a storage facility, which it is, but it isn't. It's very different. So I'm more in favor of us trying to find a way to work with this proposal. My biggest concerns would be things like the runoff with oil, and, yes, a filtration system better than your average bear would probably be in a good idea here, because you are going to have, I don't care how careful you are changing your oil's going to leak. That's what happens. And to your concerns about sleeping or not a full-fledged auto body, but a little bit, yeah, I'm inclined to try to make this work versus hitting them with rules that maybe didn't envision this in the first place.
I'm going to call it myself. Yeah, question for staff, I guess. Is there a way to get to option one other than just changing our zoning code? Or would that be the route we'd have to do?
It would just require a text amendment, yeah. So
Okay.
changing the zoning code.
Because I'd be open to that. I think as someone who was sitting here when the zoning code was rewritten, I don't think this type of business was considered. And I understand that staff has to put it somewhere. And if we didn't consider it, then it's like, well, I guess storage fits. But I feel like this is different than what I would think of as a storage unit. So I don't know what the applicant's timeline is, but if possible, I would like to at least see what a zoning text amendment would be to allow option one, just because more green space is good and it might allow for more stormwater or runoff control, because I agree with Commissioner Hanker. I definitely think it should probably be better than average. But yeah, I would be open to site concept one. Other feedback? Commissioner Lytle?
Yeah, just to tag off of that, I don't believe that the zoning code is what's driving the prohibition on any kind of work being done on the vehicles, so
That
whether...
was, correct, that was a comment by the fire department. That was their preference. I think it was more, the concern was, I can double check with the fire department. I think the concern was more just allowing someone to operate like actual business out of one of the locations, as opposed to, one of the owners doing their own work or having someone come in on a, periodic basis, once a year to do a certain project. I think it was, someone brought up the example of the window repair. I think it was you. So I don't think that was the intent. I think it was just making sure that there's a distinction between these are intended for individual owners to store their vehicles and not for someone to open their business because it's easy entry. You don't have to, purchase a large piece of property and put in that investment that you would typically need to operate like an auto body shop or a repair shop. So I think that was the concern. But again, I'll double check with the fire department. And again, that was not a zoning requirement. That was just a comment from staff. And regarding the idea of doing a text amendment, that is an option. It would just require more time, and we can discuss with the applicant if they're fine, taking a little more time to think about this, if it gives them the desired outcome. So we can talk about that a little further with the applicant, and then also. The concern with, I totally get your concern regarding someone living there, because I've heard of that happening before. And in the past, in places where I've worked, the way they've could have tried to curtail that is not allowing someone to put a shower in. Like you can put in a toilet and a sink, but not like a full bathroom. And that's sort of been a way where they've tried to reduce the potential for something like that.
Did you have follow-up? And
Was
then
just
Alder Posey?
finishing up, sorry. So yeah, I think as far as the, sort of ancillary activities, whether that's something the applicants might want to reach out to the fire department about directly, I'm sure you guys are going to have to deal with that from a property insurance standpoint and making sure that, whatever. Here's a case where if someone does have a fire in their unit, there's significant likelihood of it spreading as opposed to something similar happening at a standalone house. And then, yeah, I get the impression these units are not going to be cheap. Not like any self-storage seems cheap anymore, but I don't think this would necessarily attract people who are trying to find a cheaper way to be with their car and sleep and make it a residence. But I think all those steps we should go through to make sure it's discouraged and monitored makes sense.
Alder Posey.
And as odd as it may seem, I'm actually okay with the shower, just because I know people who work on cars, and you know, you're doing it during the summer, I want to give them the chance if they want to put a shower in, oddly, because I agree, yeah, that would be a really easy thing, but I also want to give people who are willing to do this with their cars and have a place to work on their cars, the ability to go home clean, and, you know, I think that that's, if they're able to put that in, I'm okay with it, or I don't know if you guys want to do a locker room instead, you know, but I do want folks to be able to do that if that's how they want to take care of this, because I think above anything I see in this is a community, and I think that's a great addition to our community in a lot of ways, is there are people who collect cars and work on cars, and this is what they do, and this gives them a space for that community to meet. Part of the reason I like the two buildings is because it allows people to talk, to walk across, to be like, hey, man, what you working on today? Because that's what happens in a neighborhood. It has what happens in a community. You look at each other's stuff, and I think that that's what's great about this project, and why I'm open to being so flexible, because I'm not often the person who's up here saying I'll be so flexible with everything. So,
Commissioner Hankard, and then Commissioner Harrison.
I guess a question for staff. We have two examples, apparently, one in Oregon, one in Middleton, apparently. Perhaps, I don't know how long they've been operating, but is it in the purview of staff, or would it be the applicant? I don't know. Call Middleton, call Oregon. What were your concerns? How has it worked out? I mean, you know, we don't have, it's a new thing for us, but it's obviously not new for the area. So that would be, if that's within what the staff typically does, I would recommend that.
Absolutely. It's point one in my notes. So I was thinking the same thing.
Commissioner Harrison.
I just wanted to piggyback off of Commissioner Posey's comment of, I really like this idea because it's creating a third space for a lot of people where, you know, a lot of time nowadays is spent either home or at work, and this is creating another place where you can find people of the same interests. And I think that, and I really like that there's a little event center where there's like, it's meant to have people connect at. I think that this is a really, really cool and interesting concept, and I also think we should work with this as much as we possibly can. I think it's cool.
Other feedback? Does staff feel that they've been given adequate feedback?
Yes. The only thing that really hasn't been discussed, which I was interested in, was that the idea of the clubhouse, if there's any concerns regarding that. I mean, it is in a suburban industrial zone district, so you would think it's not going to be impacting the same way it might a residential neighbor, but if you had any concerns or thoughts on that, that would be interesting to hear.
Commissioner Hankard?
I think I can speak for all of us when I say that's kind of the part that we like. It's this community element, and if you want to throw a little party there in the industrial park, have at it. I mean, it's not in a neighborhood. I think that's the part we like, is this, yeah.
I'll just say I agree with what Commissioner Hankard said. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything. No? Okay. All right. We'll look forward to hearing back. With that, we'll move on to item 6, which is reports and comments from the planning department. First up, we have 6A, which is the comprehensive plan process.
Yes, thank you. And to the applicants, you're more than welcome to stay, but that concludes that part of the agenda. So in your packets, prepared a memo describing the statutory requirements for comprehensive plans in the state of Wisconsin. Attached to that was a memo that was done, I think, 1.5 years ago by staff, sort of outlining the same, and also just sort of giving a framework for what a comprehensive plan needs, as well as sort of a anticipated timeline. It's my understanding in talking to staff that the idea would be for this to be done in-house, and if that's the case, I would anticipate probably a 2-year timeline for something like that. I just recently was in the process of concluding a comprehensive plan in the community I worked for, and that was a approximately two-year process, and that did have the assistance of a consulting team as well. That particular plan did have a lot of public input, and even after public input, it sort of went from, it was vetted by each board and commission in addition to that. So, there were certain reasons why it took a little bit longer, but I would imagine not having a full understanding of just the annual or seasonal workload that there might be, not only on staff, but the planning commission as well, because the planning commission is ultimately going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the comprehensive plan. And so things like, do we want to have additional meetings? There's currently one planning commission meeting a month, and if we're going to be accommodating applicants and working on the comprehensive plan, there might need to be additional meetings or an extended timeline. So just some of the things that came to mind as I was talking about this. One of the other things that was discussed was the city wanted to wait until the census data was released, and the most recent census data was released in May of 2023, and that's going to be about as much information as valuable information that we're going to gather from the 2020 census. So I think from that standpoint, it's a fine place to to start. Some other things that I'd like the Planning Commission's feedback and thought on, and this isn't necessarily intended to be, I don't need this information right now, but just to sort of start you thinking, are there any other components that you would like to see in the master plan or in the comprehensive plan in terms of different topics? Are there things that you would like answers to? Are there common themes that you see when you get applications that you just don't know how to handle them? Are there developments that you probably liked but weren't able to approve because of the underlying zoning or the planning commission or the existing comprehensive plan? So just some of those things, if you could think about those over the next few weeks and month, because that's really the starting point. We want to get an idea of what's the scope of the comprehensive plan, and sort of that's going to be the starting point. Because what we don't want to have happen is get halfway through this and figure out, oh, we really, should have thought about this. Because a lot of that analysis is done in the beginning. The work that's done at the beginning of the comprehensive plan is a lot of that analysis work. So understanding what that needs to be in the front end is going to be really, really important. I think that was about it. Just, briefly also, in my experience, it would be helpful to have some further analysis done on like the housing market analysis, commercial market analysis, some help with population and employment forecasts. These are certainly things you can do in-house, but I think if given the amount of development pressure that Verona has seen over last decade plus, and the idea that that's not gonna stop, having the best data possible, I think is going to be helpful. So yeah, especially if there's any questions you have for me or what you would like to see at our next Plan Commission meeting, if you'd like me to start working on a draft scope and present that to you, that would be all helpful information that I would like.
I'll just say, I think, yeah, a draft scope for the next meeting would be really, I think, helpful, especially because I haven't undergone this process, and I don't think anyone else has either. So it might be useful for everyone to get that, kind of get an idea of what it would be like. And I would definitely recommend anyone, when you have thoughts on what the kind of comprehensive plan should look like for the city, you should email Mr. Sievertson. So,
And I'd be happy to meet with you, individually. I understand having individually would be required as opposed to meeting outside the plan commission meeting. But yeah, I'd be happy to meet with any of you individually to talk about some of your ideas or thoughts or concerns.
Commissioner Lytle, then Alder Posey.
As luck would have it, or bad luck would have it, actually I have two people who served on the kind of ad hoc committee for the 2009 plan. And I guess maybe would throw it out to the group here to consider, by forming a citizen committee, representative from the school, from the realtors, from, different community organizations like Badger Prairie Needs, these people that are trying to accomplish things in our community, rather than when you send out surveys to, 6,000 email addresses and get 20 back, try to engage them to get input from their organization. The other thing that would be nice about that is, yes, you have an additional group to manage, but those are really working meetings and don't follow, at least I don't think they have to follow the same standards for, a public body that ours does. They should be noticed and stuff, but I think you just sit around a table and have discussions as opposed to the Plan Commission format. But, I'm happy to dig through some backup I have somewhere of some of those materials. I don't necessarily think we want to mirror the process from 2009, but I do think it would probably be challenging to try to devote significant Plan Commission time to monthly or bi-monthly meetings, but just some ideas.
Alder Posey.
It's been a little while since we've really talked about this. I think this is something we are all chomping at the bit at. But I do think at some point we had discussed budget lines associated with this. It may have been several years since we've discussed that.
Okay.
But it could be worthwhile checking in with Brian. He would
Okay.
be aware of conversations, especially that he and Adam had around this, and Catherine may even be aware of that. So that way, if we did have something kind of planned ahead, because we've been talking about this for many years now, that, like I said, I don't think I remember talking about it at front of mind this year's budget cycle, but since we're talking about a 2-year process,
Yeah.
maybe it's even a possibility for some temporary staff support or something like that, where you guys aren't just on your own trying to do the regular job and this. So let's look into what we need to do.
Yeah, and there's also, I don't know currently, but traditionally, typically there's grants for this sort of work too. So that would be something that I'll be looking into. Also, I'm going to be meeting with other jurisdictions, regional planning agencies as well, and sort of get some of their thoughts on this process, and hopefully they have some resources that we can use, especially regarding population projections. That's typically something like the Regional Planning Commission would have data on, so we might be able to borrow some of those things. One other thing I was going to, and the question or thought brought up by Commissioner Lytle, yeah, absolutely. That's bringing in the other organizations in the community, churches, schools, other civic institutions, residents, businesses, all of those are definitely important. And I think it comes down to a decision if the city, the common council and the plan commission want to really have direct oversight over it, or if you want to have sort of like a working committee that meets and discusses some of these issues separately and then sort of comes back and reports to the plan commission. That's another option that we can talk about. But at the very least, I would expect at the beginning of this process is to set up stakeholder interviews with all of those groups, and that's a good way that I found to get people sort of interested in the plan, but also like vested in the plan because they provided that input, and they kind of want to see what happens to it. And so that's another way to engage those people. When you get, when you engage those organizations, they kind of trickle that down through their membership. So yeah, no, that's a great idea.
Other thoughts on the comp plan? Oh, Commissioner Hankert.
Yeah, lots going through the mind here. I think your idea of some kind of a committee where we can just get together in a room and hash it out is much more efficient and better than this forum and getting other stakeholders. One thing I remember from the original plan was the balance between making a plan that has teeth and making a plan that is open to change. And that was difficult. So, Liberty Business Park started out as a business park, but now it's something slightly different, I think, than what it was initially. The high school was supposed to be a Lowe's or a Home Depot and a skating rink or whatever. Now it's not. Excuse me, now it's not. I mean, things do change, but what good is a plan if it's got no teeth? It's just a document that you spent 2 years writing to throw in a drawer. So that, to me, is the crux, is what are we really trying to achieve here? So in terms of, you said a scope. So to me, I mean, zoom way out at first and say, what are we trying to do? Okay, yeah, we might have to satisfy some regulatory requirements, fine. But what use does this document or this process have to the city of Verona? I mean, the one thing I hear everybody saying is, why so many damn apartments, right? Okay, well, let's address that. Is that because that's what the market demands and the city needs? Or is it a scourge like some people think it is? I don't know, getting at those big, longer-term issues. I thought I heard somebody say, get some additional staff versus hire a consultant. I love that. But I don't think we need, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I don't think we need a consultant. We all know this city. We live here. We reach out to the stakeholders, and we'll get their input. And then have somebody behind the scenes, like some extra support staff, so that you can do your day job. It sounds great to me versus hiring a consultant that wants to get knee-deep in data and produce a report that may or may not be useful. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. And I would love to have a conversation with you, so I'll ring or email you on the side here, knowing that we can't all get together and do that. Thanks.
Sounds great.
And then if I could just add one thing on public feedback. I think public feedback is really good, but I also think we need to be realistic on what comp plans can and can't do, and when they have teeth and when they don't. And ultimately, like, even if the plan commission, ad hoc committee, council are in agreement now, it doesn't mean they'll be in agreement in the future. And just so we want to be really, because sometimes I think people get cynical about public feedback, that they also feel like it all ends up in a drawer somewhere as opposed to being seriously considered. And I want to just be realistic with people. It's like, this is what the plan is and this is what you're giving feedback. So I want to manage expectations, I guess. Anything else on the comp plan? All right. With that, we will move on to 6B, which is update on development projects.
So I did talk to the building inspector today just to get an update on kind of the status of some of the construction projects. He did indicate that there hasn't been substantial changes in the past few months in terms of certain milestones being set. So I don't have much to update on those types of projects. I do have some potential cases that are going to be coming to the Plan Commission next month. And that's going to be Associated Bank, which was before the Plan Commission in December. They're hoping to come back for a formal review. And then we have a project for conditional use for Tint World, which is like, they do like tinting for cars and vehicles. Also, that's not the only thing they do, but they also do a lot of like, audio equipment for cars and vehicles. So they'll be coming in for a conditional use. And then there's another conditional use for outdoor storage facility.
All right. Any questions on development projects? All right. With that, we'll move on to item 7, which is adjournment. Motion to adjourn would be in order. Motion by Commissioner Haggard. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Harrison. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And we adjourned at 7:21 p.m. Thank you, everyone.